I think people who don't watch the documentary will immediately say, this is just a separatist pipe dream documentary. But I don't think it is. I think you go through the historical inequities, lay it out, actually talk to Albertans, which is something that the Laurentian elites never do. They never find out why we are so disgruntled with Confederation. And then you talk to a bunch of different people with a bunch of different takes and a bunch of different solutions. It's not just one solution, we've got to leave or we've got to join the United States. There's a bunch of different people that you talk to who have looked at this from different viewpoints and said, okay, so these are the problems. This is the way that I see that we can fix it.
Yeah, and I think that that was the most complicated part about it. I interviewed Derek Fildebrandt first. He was the one that said, "Yeah, let's do it tomorrow." I was like, "Oh, I don't even think I'm ready." So I went and we just had a conversation, and I pitched a half an hour interview with everybody, and that one turned out to be an hour and 45 minutes. And I ended the interview like I have no idea what I just got into. This is 117 years of anger, and there's so many stories and so many premiers and prime ministers that did Alberta wrong, or it just goes forever. So it was really tough to kind of bring it all into. It's an hour and 52 minutes long, which is long. But yeah, and then I was able to find some actual separatists who can articulate the idea, and I think that that's so important now. And Derek puts this the same way, and you put it, and Ezra would put it the same way too. Is before separatists was just, it was all about anger, but there was no actual ideas. It was like, okay, we're gonna leave, but I don't know how. And now people are actually talking about those ideas, about how it could go through and what they would need to not separate. And I think that that's so important because every single person interviewed in the documentary, separatist or not, can agree on the same things of what Albertans need. And that is really the idea of the documentary, is that Albertans really need some things that make Canada a safe place to live. And it's scary to say that Canada is not a safe place to live for Albertans.
Yeah, it's when you talk to people who are separatists these days, there are, of course, enthusiastic separatists, but there are so many reluctant ones who are like, we tried this. The West wanted in. We got Stephen Harper. We had 10 years of fairly stable, good governance, but the Liberals always get back in. And then they always do the same thing. They reverse everything, and they do all the things that Liberals always do to the West. They attack agriculture. They attack our property rights. They attack our gun rights, which are the same as property rights. They attack our oil and gas industry. And it's always to buy votes in Eastern Canada. And there are a lot of people who are saying, I love Canada. I really do. I love my fellow Canadians. I don't want to go, but I'm being shoved out the door with no other options by the federal government.
Quebec wants to stay in the country but take the Canadian flag down, and Alberta wants to leave the country but leave the flag up.
Yeah, what a great way to put it.
Everything.
And your documentary sort of addresses this strange unfairness that happens to Albertans when we talk about separatism or rethinking.
When we talk about anything, when we talk about, like how you say, putting our shoulders up or our elbows up against the federal government, it's that the federal government looks at us like we're kooks or idiots or extremists or far right, whatever. But it's simply not the case, because that's exactly what Quebec has done for the last, since whatever, the 1960s, or since Canada was a country. Quebec says, okay, well, I'm walking away. And then Canada's like, no, please come back. We'll give you whatever the hell you want. And it could be the same thing for Alberta if we weren't viewed as how I was putting it at the start of that.
Yeah, it's there is a certain, even in when we talk about separatism, we are treated unfairly, as opposed to the complete total normalization of separatism in Quebec. It's fine to be a politician who's a separatist. It's fine to be a musician who's a separatist. It's fine to be a journalist who's a separatist. It's part of their culture. And you can be a separatist.
Fine, it's cool.
It's cool. Like, you can be a separatist or not a separatist, and it doesn't make you a radical white supremacist. But if you say, you know what, I think we're getting maybe screwed a little bit on equalization, all of a sudden you're a fringe radical in Alberta. You're attacked by the media. You are fact checked by people who couldn't find a fact with both hands on a flashlight. You are talked down to by sometimes your own Alberta politicians and the federal government. And so even it's funny because even when we talk about separatism, you can see the inequities of how Alberta is treated within Confederation.
And that's exactly it. I'm gonna use a conspiracy term, but I always thought when I first got here that Quebec separatism was like a psyop. Like it was so in the media. I learned about it in school. You learn about it everywhere. And when you say someone's going to separate from somewhere, immediately you think of Quebec. And I had no idea that, especially in the 1980s here, that the sentiment was extremely like it was a lot. It was high, and even like along the way that Albertans are thinking about this, but nobody talks about it because it's all about Quebec. And why I say it's like a psyop, it's probably the wrong word to use, but it comes in my head that Alberta has all the money, Alberta has all the oil, Alberta has every raw rare earth material you need, and it kind of goes into Saskatchewan and Manitoba. But with that region, we have everything that Canada needs, everything that the world needs, especially today. And why aren't like obviously the federal government, that's another story of why they aren't letting us export it or produce it or whatever. Like we have all that and nobody's taking it, nobody's using it. And Quebec is the one that everybody wants to talk about when they're angry that whatever they're angry about, I don't even know, that people out here don't speak French, so they're mad. Like it's such a weird phenomena that nobody looks at Alberta in that way, and I think that's on purpose because if we weren't painted with such a picture of if we were to separate or to talk about some form of independence, that we were a far right extremist, and I think that's because we have all the money.
What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.